Hello, everyone, and welcome. Tonight, we're going to step back in time, moving slowly and carefully into the quiet world of medieval scribes. These were the patient souls who spent their days hunched over parchment, copying manuscripts letter by letter, word by word, page by page. Before we begin our journey, if you enjoy this kind of content, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if it genuinely helps you relax. And feel free to leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. It's always comforting to know we're all settling in together, wherever we might be in the world. Now, get comfortable. Adjust your pillow, pull up your blanket, dim the lights if you haven't already. Let the world outside fade away for a while. We're about to enter the Scriptorium. That special room where silence was sacred and patience was a virtue. Take a deep breath. And another. Let your shoulders drop. Tonight, there's no rush. There's nowhere to be. We're simply going to observe, to witness the slow and steady rhythm of work that defined centuries of knowledge preservation. The medieval Scriptorium. Just saying the word feels hushed, doesn't it? It was a place of whispers, of scratching quills, of careful concentration. A place where time moved differently, where a single page might take an entire day to complete, where mistakes meant starting over, where perfection wasn't just desired, it was expected. Let's begin our day with Brother Thomas. That's what we'll call him. Though he could have been any one of thousands of scribes working across medieval Europe from the 6th century through the 15th. Men, and occasionally women, who dedicated their lives to this singular purpose, preserving knowledge, one letter at a time. The first bell rings while it's still dark outside. Brother Thomas has been awake for a few minutes already, lying on his simple straw mattress in the dormitory, feeling the cold air on his face. November mornings in the monastery are particularly bitter. The stone walls hold the chill, like they're storing it for later. He sits up slowly. His back aches. It always aches these days. 20 years of bending over a writing desk will do that to a body. He's 43 years old, which makes him quite elderly by medieval standards, though the abbot is 57 and still moves with surprising energy. Brother Thomas swings his legs over the side of the narrow bed. The floor is cold stone against his feet. He reaches for the rough wool robe that serves as his only clothing, aside from a spare that's currently being washed. The fabric is scratchy but warm. He's had this particular robe for 3 years now. The hem is beginning to fray and there's a stain near the bottom from when he accidentally knocked over a bowl of walnut ink. That was a bad day. The stain won't come out, but the robe is still serviceable. Around him, other monks are rising as well. There's no talking. The rule of their order requires silence from Compline until after the morning's first prayers. So they move like shadows, these holy men, finding their shoes, their belts, their dignity in the darkness. Brother Thomas makes his way to the lavatorium, where he splashes his face with water so cold it makes his teeth ache. The water sits in a stone basin, and a thin layer of ice has formed on top overnight. He breaks it with his fingers, and the cracking sound seems loud in the quiet morning. He doesn't need a mirror. Vanity is a sin, and besides, he knows what he looks like. Tonsured head with a ring of greying hair, pale skin from spending most of his days indoors, ink stains on his fingers that never quite wash away. His right hand is slightly cramped. the middle finger bent at an odd angle from decades of gripping a quill. This is the mark of his profession, worn as surely as a knight wears scars from battle. The monks file into the church for matins, the first prayer service of the day. It's still pitch black outside. The church is lit by a few candles, their light making the shadows dance along the stone walls and vaulted ceiling. Brother Thomas takes his place in the choir, standing between Brother William, who illuminates manuscripts, and Brother Peter, who is still learning his letters. The chanting begins, low, sonorous voices filling the space. Brother Thomas knows these psalms by heart. He's copied them dozens of times, and even before that, he heard them every day from the time he entered the monastery as a boy of 12. The Latin flows through him like water, familiar and comforting. Deus, in adjutorium meum intende, God, come to my assistance. Lord, make haste to help me. The words wash over him. His mind wanders a little, which he knows it shouldn't. He thinks about the manuscript he's currently copying, the Gospel of Luke. He's on chapter 15, the parable of the prodigal son. Beautiful words. Challenging to copy because the master text they're working from has some irregular spacing, and he needs to make decisions about where to break lines. The service continues. More psalms, a reading, a prayer for the sick. Brother Ambrose has been coughing for 2 weeks now. Everyone is worried, though no one says so aloud. Illness in the monastery can spread quickly in the close quarters where they live. After matins, there's a brief period before Lauds, the dawn prayer. Some monks return to their cells for a few minutes of rest. Brother Thomas doesn't. Instead, he slips into the scriptorium. It's still too dark to work, but he wants to prepare his workspace. The scriptorium is a long room on the 2nd floor of the monastery. Windows run along one wall, tall and narrow, letting in what light there is. Once the sun rises, this will be the brightest room in the entire complex. That's why it's positioned on the south side of the building, to capture as much natural light as possible throughout the day. The room is cold, bitterly cold. Brother Thomas can see his breath. In winter, they're allowed a small brazier to warm their hands. But it's not lit yet. That will come later, after prime, once the day's work officially begins. He walks to his desk, his footsteps echoing slightly on the wooden floor. The room smells of parchment and ink and dust. It's a smell he's known for most of his life, and it's more home to him than any other scent in the world. His desk is positioned to catch the best light from the windows. It's angled, tilted up toward him so that the page sits at the perfect height for writing. The wood is worn smooth from years of use. This particular desk has been used by scribes for longer than Brother Thomas has been alive. There are small stains and marks in the wood. Evidence of spilled ink, dropped tools, the accumulated history of careful labor. On the desk sits his current project, the Gospel manuscript. It's a beautiful thing, even unfinished. The pages are vellum, made from calfskin, stretched and scraped and prepared until they're smooth as silk. Expensive. Very expensive. This manuscript, when complete, will represent the slaughter of an entire herd of calves. Each page is precious, and mistakes are costly. Brother Thomas doesn't light a candle yet. He simply stands there in the pre-dawn darkness, looking at his work. The page he finished yesterday. The page that awaits him today. The stack of unfinished pages, that will occupy his days for months to come. He reaches out and touches the edge of the parchment, gently, the way you might touch something holy, because it is holy. This is the word of God he's copying. Every letter must be perfect, every line straight, every word exactly as it appears in the master text. The bell rings for Lord's. Brother Thomas leaves the Scriptorium and returns to the church. The sky is just beginning to lighten outside. Dawn is coming, slow and grey, the way it always does in November. After Lord's comes prime, and after prime comes breakfast. Though breakfast is perhaps too grand a word for what they receive. A piece of dark bread, some thin porridge made from barley, water. On feast days, there might be cheese or a bit of salted fish. But this is an ordinary Thursday in November, and ordinary Thursdays don't merit special food. Brother Thomas eats slowly, chewing each bite thoroughly. The bread is coarse and a little stale, but it fills the emptiness in his stomach. He doesn't complain. Complaining would be prideful. Besides, he's eaten this bread, or bread very like it, for 31 years now, since he first came to the monastery, since he first felt called to this life of prayer and work. Across from him, Brother William eats in similar silence. They're not allowed to speak during meals, but they can look at each other, and sometimes that's enough. Brother William's fingers, like Brother Thomas's, are stained with ink. But Brother William's stains include other colours too. Red from vermilion, blue from lapis lazuli, gold from actual gold leaf. Brother William is an illuminator, one of the few monks in the monastery, skilled enough to create the elaborate decorated initials and border illustrations that make manuscripts not just readable but beautiful. After breakfast, they file back to the scriptorium. Now the real work of the day begins. The sun is up, though it's filtered through heavy clouds. Still, there's enough light now to work by. Natural light is essential. Candles can be used in an emergency, but they create smoke and flickering shadows, and precision work requires steady, clear illumination. Brother Thomas takes his seat at his desk. His wooden writing chair is simple, with a straight back and no cushion. Comfort isn't the point. Focus is the point. He arranges his tools carefully, methodically, everything in its place, everything exactly where it needs to be. First, his quills. He has several, in varying states of use. A quill pen is made from a goose feather, usually taken from the left wing of the bird, because those feathers curve away from a right-handed writer's line of sight. The feather must be prepared carefully. The barbs stripped away. The shaft hardened by heat. The tip cut at precisely the right angle with a sharp knife. Brother Thomas is particular about his knives. He has 3. One for cutting and mending quills, one for scraping away mistakes from parchment, and one for cutting pages and trimming edges. Each knife is kept sharp. A dull knife is worse than useless. It's dangerous. Next, his ink. He uses iron gall ink, made from oak galls, iron sulfate, and gum Arabic. The recipe is precise, and mixing it is a skill in itself. The ink must be dark enough to read, but not so thick that it clogs the quill. It must flow smoothly but dry quickly, too thin, and it will feather out on the parchment. Too thick, and it will sit on the surface in lumps. The ink sits in a small horn, called an inkhorn, which is stable and won't tip over easily. Brother Thomas has knocked over an inkhorn exactly once in his life. He was 19. The ink spread across 3 days of work, ruining it beyond repair. He scrubbed it as best he could, scraped the parchment, but the stain remained. The abbot, then Brother Augustine, made him redo all 3 days, not as punishment, as lesson. Work must be careful. Accidents have consequences. Brother Thomas also has a pot of red ink for rubrics. These are the headings and important words that are written in red to stand out from the black text. Rubric comes from the Latin word for red. The red ink is made from cinnabar, and it's even more expensive than the black ink. He uses it sparingly. On his desk is also a ruler, made of wood and marked with careful measurements. Straight lines are essential in manuscript work. Each page must be laid out with precision. Margins marked, lines ruled, text blocks planned. Nothing is left to chance. And his pumice stone. This is for smoothing the parchment before writing and for gently erasing errors. A good pumice stone is worth its weight in gold to a scribe. Finally, his exemplar. This is the manuscript he's copying from. It sits on a special stand to his left, positioned so he can see it clearly without having to turn his head too far. The exemplar is older, perhaps 100 years old, and it's been used for copying before. There are small marks in the margins where previous scribes noted difficult passages or peculiarities in the text. Brother Thomas looks at the page he needs to copy today. Luke 15 verses 11 through 32. The prodigal son. He knows this story, of course. Every Christian knows this story. But knowing it and copying it are different things. He can't rely on memory. Every word must be exact. Every letter precisely formed. He dips his quill in the ink, taps it gently against the rim of the inkhorn to remove excess, and touches the tip to a scrap of parchment to test the flow. Perfect. The ink flows smoothly, leaving a crisp, dark line. He positions his hand over the first line of the new page. His wrist rests on a small bridge, a piece of wood that keeps his hand from touching the parchment surface. Oil from his skin would make the parchment reject the ink, leaving blotchy, uneven letters. And he begins. Ait autumn, he said, however. The first letter, the A, is larger than the others. It's the beginning of a new section. He forms it carefully, slowly. The vertical stroke, the horizontal bar, the apex. Each line must be exactly the right thickness. The ink must be distributed evenly. Homo quidam habuit duos filios. A certain man had 2 sons. His hand moves steadily across the page. Not quickly, never quickly. Speed leads to errors, and errors must be scraped away, which damages the parchment and wastes time. Better to work slowly and work correctly the first time. The letters form beneath his quill, clean, even, beautiful in their uniformity. Brother Thomas writes in a style called Carolingian minuscule, developed centuries ago during the reign of Charlemagne. It's clear, legible, elegant. Each letter has a specific form, each word properly spaced. The text flows across the page like a black river on a white landscape. Time passes. Brother Thomas doesn't notice. When he's copying, the world narrows to the space between his eyes and the parchment. Everything else fades away. The cold, the ache in his back, the distant sounds of the monastery. All of it disappears. There's only the text, the words, the careful formation of each letter. He reaches the end of the first line. He must decide where to break the words. Latin doesn't have spaces between words in many ancient texts, but modern practice is to separate them. This makes reading easier, but it also means making decisions about hyphenation and line breaks. He moves to the second line. The rhythm of the work settles over him like a familiar cloak. Dip the quill. Tap. Write. Dip. Tap. Write. The motion is meditative, holy in its repetition. Around him, other scribes work in similar silence. Brother William is at his own desk, preparing a page for illumination. He's drawing preliminary sketches for a decorated initial. The scratch of his stylus on parchment is a soft, rhythmic whisper. Brother Peter, the young scribe still learning his craft, is copying psalms. His work is slower than Brother Thomas's, shakier, but improving. Everyone starts somewhere. Brother Thomas remembers his own first attempts at copying. The wobbly letters, the uneven lines, the blots and smears. It takes years to develop a steady hand. Brother Geoffrey, who is elderly now and nearly blind, no longer copies. Instead, he prepares parchment and mixes inks. He sits near the window, scraping a sheepskin with a curved blade, working the surface until it's smooth enough to write on. It's repetitive work, but necessary. And it allows him to still contribute, even though his eyes can no longer make out the fine details of letter forms. The morning light grows stronger. The scriptorium brightens. This is the best time for work. Clear, steady light, fresh energy, hands not yet tired from hours of gripping the quill. Brother Thomas finishes the 5th line of the page. He's made good progress. At this rate, he'll complete 20 lines today. Maybe 25 if his hand holds out and the light stays good. A full page is typically 30 to 40 lines, depending on the size of the script and the dimensions of the page. He pauses to flex his fingers. His hand is beginning to cramp. Just a little. Nothing serious yet. But he knows the signs. He's felt them 1,000 times before. The way the muscles in his palms start to tighten. The way his fingers want to curl inward. resisting the grip on the quill. He sets down the pen and opens and closes his hand several times. He rotates his wrist, stretches his fingers wide. This isn't procrastination, it's maintenance. A cramped hand makes mistakes, and mistakes mean lost time. After a moment, he picks up the quill again and continues. Et dixit adolescentior ex illis patri. And the younger of them said to his father, the youngest son, the one who will demand his inheritance early, who will leave home, who will waste everything, who will find himself feeding pigs and longing to eat their food, who will finally come to his senses and return home, expecting nothing, and finding forgiveness instead. Brother Thomas knows how the story ends, but he doesn't skip ahead. He copies each word in order, letting the narrative unfold at its own pace. This is the discipline of the scribe, to not anticipate, to not assume, to simply receive each word and transfer it faithfully to the new page. The bell rings for terce, the mid-morning prayer. Brother Thomas sets down his quill carefully, making sure it won't roll off the desk. He's copied 8 lines so far this morning. Good progress. He's pleased, though he knows better than to feel pride. Pride is dangerous. Pride leads to carelessness. He stands slowly. His back protests. He's been hunched over the desk for nearly 2 hours now, and his spine has settled into that curved position. Standing up straight requires effort. The monks filed down to the church once more. The routine of prayer punctuates the day, breaking work into manageable sections. 7 times a day, they gather for the divine office. Matins in the darkness before dawn. Lords at dawn. Prime sunrise. Terce at bar at mid-morning. Sext at noon. None in mid-afternoon. Vespers at sunset. And compline before bed. Some people, Brother Thomas knows, would find this exhausting. All these interruptions, all this moving back and forth between work and prayer. But he finds it soothing, natural. The prayers ground him, remind him why he does what he does. This isn't just copying for the sake of copying. This is holy work, sacred labor. Terce is brief, a psalm, a hymn, a prayer. Then back to work. When Brother Thomas returns to the Scriptorium, he takes a moment to study what he's written so far. He looks critically at each letter. Are they uniform? Is the spacing consistent? Do any lines waver or drift upward? He spots a small imperfection in one of the letters on line 6. The horizontal stroke of a T is slightly thick on one end. It's barely noticeable. Most people wouldn't see it, but Brother Thomas sees it, and it bothers him. He picks up his scraping knife. Carefully, so carefully, he scrapes away the excess ink. The blade whispers against the parchment. Too much pressure would cut through. Too little wouldn't remove the ink. It's a delicate balance. There. Better. Not perfect, but better. The parchment is slightly rougher where he scraped, but he can smooth it with his pumice stone. He rubs the stone gently over the area. The surface becomes uniform again. He dips his quill and redraws the stroke. This time it's even. Good. This is part of the work too. The corrections, the perfectionism, the refusal to accept good enough when excellence is possible. Brother Thomas continues copying. Line 9, line 10, line 11. The scriptorium is quiet, except for the scratch of quills and the occasional soft sound of someone shifting in their chair. It's a peaceful quiet, a working quiet. The kind of silence that feels full rather than empty. Brother William, at his desk, has finished his preliminary sketches. Now he's mixing colors. He has small pots of pigment powder, ground minerals and metals and plants. Some of these pigments came from very far away. The blue lapis lazuli was mined in Afghanistan and traveled thousands of miles to reach this monastery in England, or France, or Germany, wherever we imagine Brother Thomas to be. The red cinnabar came from Spain. The yellow orpiment is arsenic sulfide, poisonous if ingested. Brother William knows to be careful with it, to wash his hands thoroughly after use. He mixes the powders with binding medium, sometimes egg white, sometimes gum arabic, sometimes animal glue. The resulting paint must be smooth without lumps and must flow from the brush without bleeding into the parchment. Brother Thomas hears the quiet clink of Brother William's palette and knife against the side of a pot, the soft swish of a brush in water. These sounds are familiar, comforting. They're the sounds of creation, of preservation, of beauty being brought into the world, one color at a time. Brother Thomas reaches the end of the line 12 and realizes he's made an error, a small one. He's written patri when it should be patris. The wrong case ending, not a huge mistake. The meaning is still clear from context, but it's wrong nonetheless. His stomach tightens. He hates making mistakes, even small ones, even ones that are easily corrected. He sets down his quill and picks up his scraping knife again. More carefully this time, he scrapes away the last letter of the word, the I. Then he scrapes where the S will need to go. He can't just write over the error. The ink would be too thick, visible as a correction. Once the parchment is clean and smooth again, he rewrites the ending. Patris. There. Correct now. He makes a small mark in the margin of the exemplar next to this line. A reminder to himself to be more careful. This section contains several similar case endings, and he needs to pay closer attention. The morning wears on. Brother Thomas settles back into his rhythm. Dip, tap, right. Dip, tap, right. The letters flow from his quill onto the parchment. Black ink on white surface. Words forming. Sentences accumulating. Line 13. Line 14. Line 15. His hand is really cramping now. The muscles between his thumb and forefinger ache. His middle finger, where the quill rests, has a callus so thick that the skin there has lost most of its sensation. But beneath the callus Deeper in the tissue, there's a dull, constant ache. This is the price of the work, the physical toll it takes. Brother Thomas has known scribes who had to stop copying in their 50s because their hands simply couldn't hold the quill anymore. The arthritis too severe, the cramping too constant. He flexes his hand again, rotates his wrist. He'll probably manage another 5 or 6 lines before he needs a longer break. The light from the window shifts as the sun moves higher in the sky. Brother Thomas adjusts his position slightly to keep the page well lit without glare. Good light is essential, but direct sunlight can be blinding and make it hard to see the fine details of the letters. Line 16 begins, Et surgens venit ad patrem sum. And rising up, he came to his father. The prodigal son's return, the moment of decision, the journey home. Brother Thomas thinks about what it must have felt like to make that walk, knowing you've squandered everything, expecting nothing but perhaps a servant's position, and instead finding love, forgiveness, welcome. It's a powerful story. Even after copying it or reading it hundreds of times, it still moves him, still speaks to something deep in his soul. This is why the work matters. This is why precision matters. Because these aren't just words on a page. These are truths, eternal truths. And they deserve to be copied with care, with reverence, with love. Brother Thomas blinks. His eyes are tired from focusing so intently on the small letters. Looking at the page for hours on end is straining. Many older scribes need to hold their work at arm's length to see it clearly, their eyes weakening with age and use. But Brother Thomas's eyes are still relatively strong. He can see the fine details, the thin strokes and thick strokes that give each letter its character and clarity. He's grateful for this. It's a gift, one he doesn't take for granted. Line 17, line 18, line 19, 20. He sets down his quill and sits back. 20 lines. That's a good morning's work. Very good, actually. Some days he only manages 15. Especially in winter when the light is poor and his hands are stiff with cold. But today has been productive. The words have flowed well. He's made only one error, and he corrected it cleanly. The page looks good, uniform, professional. He allows himself a moment of quiet satisfaction, not pride. Just the simple, honest satisfaction of work well done. The bell for sext rings, signaling noon. Brother Thomas covers his work carefully with a cloth to protect it from dust. He cleans his quill, wiping the nib carefully on a scrap of cloth. He doesn't want the ink to dry on the tip overnight. A clogged quill is useless. Wait, not overnight. It's only noon. But the routine is the same. Clean tools, covered work, everything put away properly. The monks gather for sext, another round of psalms and prayers. Brother Thomas's knees ache as he kneels on the stone floor of the church. Another price of aging, another reminder that the body is temporary while the soul is eternal. After sext comes dinner, the main meal of the day. In the refectory, the monks sit at long wooden tables. The room is large and echoing. A single monk stands at a lectern, reading aloud from a religious text while the others eat. They call this monk the reader, and it's considered an honor to be chosen for the role. Today, the reader is Brother Anselm, and he's reading from Augustine's Confessions. His voice carries through the hall, steady and clear. Late have I loved you, O beauty ever ancient, ever new. Late have I loved you. Brother Thomas listens while he eats. Today's meal is more substantial than breakfast. There's thick vegetable pottage, barley bread, and a small piece of cheese. On the table is watered ale, which is safer to drink than well water, and provides a bit of nourishment. He eats slowly, methodically, chewing each bite thoroughly, not because he's particularly hungry, but because eating is necessary to maintain strength for work. The body is a tool, and like any tool, it must be properly maintained. The pottage is warm and filling, made with turnips, onions, and cabbage from the monastery garden, seasoned with salt and a bit of dried herbs. It's not fancy food, but it's honest food, sustaining. Brother Thomas thinks about the page he left in the Scriptorium. 20 lines done. Another 15 or 20 to go before the page is complete. If his hand holds out this afternoon, he might finish the page by Vespers. Or if not, then certainly by tomorrow mid-morning. After dinner, there's a brief period of rest. Some monks return to their cells for a short nap. Brother Thomas doesn't nap well. His mind is too active. Instead, he walks in the cloister, the covered walkway that surrounds the central courtyard. The cloister is peaceful, open to the air but protected from rain. The garden in the center is dormant now. In November, but in spring it will be full of flowers and herbs. Brother Thomas walks slowly, hands clasped in front of him. His back appreciates the movement after so many hours sitting. He thinks about nothing in particular, lets his mind drift. The rhythm of his footsteps is meditative. Step, 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 round the square, past the chapter house, past the entrance to the church, past the refectory, back to where he started. He completes 3 circuits of the cloister before the bell rings for none, the mid-afternoon prayer. After none, it's back to the scriptorium, back to work. The afternoon light is different from the morning light. Warmer, more golden. It comes from a slightly different angle through the tall windows of the scriptorium. Brother Thomas takes his seat and uncovers his work. The 20 lines from this morning look back at him. Still good, still clean. No obvious errors visible in the afternoon light. He prepares his quill again, tests the ink, and continues where he left off. Line 21. Ad hoc illo longe esset, vidit illum pater ipsius. When he was yet a great way off, his father saw him. The father watching for his son. The father who runs to meet him, which was undignified behavior for a patriarch. The father who embraces him before the son can even finish his prepared speech of apology. Brother Thomas copies the words carefully, each letter formed just as it should be. The A with its round bowl and graceful tail. the D with its vertical ascender, the H reaching up like a prayer. His hand is stiffer in the afternoon. This is normal. The muscles are tired from the morning's work. The cramp is more persistent now, but he pushes through gently, without forcing, just steady, persistent effort. The scriptorium is quieter in the afternoon. Brother William has moved on to actually painting his illumination, and he works in complete silence, his brush barely whispering against the parchment. Each stroke must be exact, each color perfectly applied. One mistake could ruin hours of work. Brother Peter has made an error in his copying. Brother Thomas can hear him scraping away the mistake. The sound is distinctive. That soft rhythmic scrape of blade against parchment. It's a sound every scribe knows well, the sound of correction, of seeking perfection. Line 22, line 23. Brother Thomas's quill needs trimming. The tip has begun to split slightly from use, making the lines a bit ragged. He sets down the quill and picks up his knife. With quick, practiced movements, he trims the nib at a fresh angle. He tests it on a scrap of parchment. Better. Clean lines again. A fresh nib feels different, sharper, more responsive. It glides across the parchment with less resistance. Brother Thomas appreciates these small moments of renewal, the fresh start that comes from a newly cut quill. He continues copying. The afternoon wears on slowly, peacefully. Time measured not in hours, but in lines completed, in words transferred from old parchment to new. Line 24, line 25. Outside the windows, clouds move across the sky. The light shifts, sometimes brighter, sometimes dimmer. Brother Thomas adjusts his position as needed, always keeping the page well lit without glare. He thinks about the generations of scribes who have done this same work, sitting in rooms like this one, copying texts like this one. Some of those scribes lived hundreds of years ago. Some are alive now, in other monasteries scattered across Europe. Some haven't been born yet, but will one day take up quill and ink and continue this work. It's a comforting thought that he's part of something larger than himself, part of a chain of preservation that stretches backward into the past and forward into the future. The manuscripts he copies will outlive him, will be read by people he'll never meet, will carry these words forward through time. Line 26, 27, 28. His hand is really protesting now. The ache has moved from his fingers up into his wrist. His shoulder is tense from holding his arm in position for so long. But he's close. So close to finishing the page. He flexes his hand between lines, opens and closes his fingers, rotates his shoulder. Just a little longer. Just a few more lines. Line 29 begins. Et dixit pater ad servos suos. And the father said to his servants, the celebration, the preparation of the feast, the fatted calf, the robe and ring and sandals, all the symbols of welcome and restoration. While the older brother, The dutiful son stands outside in anger and confusion. Brother Thomas understands the older brother's perspective perhaps more than he should. The one who stayed, who did everything right, who never strayed. And yet the celebration isn't for him. The father's joy isn't because of him. But the story isn't finished there. The father comes out to the older brother too, speaks to him, reminds him that everything the father has is already his. That celebration doesn't diminish what the faithful son has. That joy can be shared without being divided. Line 30. Line 31. The page is nearly complete. Brother Thomas allows himself to feel the satisfaction of approaching completion. Not the completion itself, that would be premature. But the approach, the nearness. Line 32, 33. And then, done. The page is finished. Every line copied. Every word transferred faithfully from the exemplar to this new sheet of vellum. Brother Thomas sets down his quill and flexes his cramping hand. He leans back carefully, feeling his spine protest the movement. He studies the finished page, top to bottom, looking for errors, checking the spacing, examining each letter. It's good, really good. The lines are straight, the letters uniform, the spacing consistent. No obvious mistakes, no corrections needed. Of course, there will be a formal checking process later. Another monk, usually one of the senior scribes, will review the page carefully, comparing it word for word against the exemplar. But Brother Thomas is confident this page will pass inspection. He allows himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. A full page, 33 lines, a good day's work. But the day isn't over yet. There's still time before Vespers. He could start the next page, get a few lines done. But his hand is really tired now. Pushing through tiredness leads to mistakes. Instead, he decides to prepare the next sheet of vellum, to rule the lines, to mark the margins. This is important work, though less demanding than the actual copying. He takes a fresh sheet from the stack. The parchment is smooth and cool to the touch, pristine, waiting to receive words. There's something almost sacred about a blank page. So much potential, so much possibility. Brother Thomas lays a ruler across the page and uses a sharp stylus to lightly score lines. Not deeply enough to cut the parchment. Just enough to leave an indentation he can follow when writing. Each line must be perfectly straight and evenly spaced from the ones above and below. He works slowly, carefully. This preparation work will make tomorrow's copying easier, straighter, more uniform. The afternoon light is fading now. The sun is moving toward the horizon, and the golden light is becoming softer, grayer. Soon it will be too dim to work by natural light alone. Brother Thomas finishes ruling the last line on the new page. He sets it aside carefully, ready for tomorrow. Then he covers his completed work, cleans his tools, and puts everything in order. The bell for Vespers will ring soon. time for the evening prayer. Time to give thanks for the day's work and to release it into God's hands. The bell rings. Brother Thomas rises from his desk, feeling every one of his 43 years. His back aches. His hand aches. His neck is stiff. But these discomforts are badges of honest labor, evidence of a day spent in worthy pursuit. He makes his way down to the church for Vespers, the evening prayer. The Psalms at this hour always feel more reflective to him, more contemplative. The day's work is done. The evening stretches ahead, quiet and peaceful. Beatus vir qui timet Dominum. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord. The words wash over him, familiar, comforting. He's copied these psalms. He's prayed them thousands of times. They're woven into the fabric of his life, as surely as the threads in his robe. After Vespers comes supper. A lighter meal, then dinner. More bread. Some leftover pottage. A bit of onion. The monks eat in silence again, listening to the evening reader. Tonight it's a saint's life being read. Saint Martin of Tours, the soldier who cut his cloak in half to share with a beggar and then discovered the beggar was Christ. Brother Thomas chews his bread slowly. He's tired now. The day's work has caught up with him, so his body wants rest. After supper there's a brief period of free time before Compline, the final prayer of the day. Some monks use this time to walk, others to sit quietly, others to do small tasks, mending, organizing. Brother Thomas returns to his cell. It's a small room, just large enough for a bed, a small chest for his few possessions, and a wooden stool. There's a narrow window high in the wall, letting in the last grey light of the day. He sits on the stool and removes his shoes. His feet ache. Standing and sitting for hours. Walking back and forth between the Scriptorium and the church. It all takes its toll. He opens his small chest. Inside are his spare robe, currently clean. A second pair of shoes. A small book of hours. A wooden cross. A few letters from his sister, who lives in a village 2 days' journey from here. He hasn't seen her in 7 years. Doesn't expect to see her again in this life. But her letters come once or twice a year, brought by a traveling merchant or a pilgrim, and they're treasured. He takes out the small book of hours. It's old, worn from use. It was given to him when he took his final vows as a monk. He opens it and reads a few prayers. Not because he has to. The required prayers are done, but because he wants to. Because after a day spent copying prayers, praying them for himself feels bête. The light is almost gone now. Brother Thomas closes the book and returns it to the chest. He sits quietly for a moment, hands folded in his lap, feeling the silence of the cell around him. He thinks about the page he completed today. 33 lines of Luke's Gospel. The prodigal son. Words that will be read long after he's gone. Words that will comfort and challenge and inspire people he'll never meet. This is why he does what he does. Not for fame. His name won't appear anywhere in the manuscript. Scribes rarely sign their work. The work itself is what matters. The preservation of the text. The careful, faithful transmission of truth from one generation to the next. He thinks about tomorrow, the next page, the continuation of the Gospel. Luke 16, the parable of the unjust steward. More challenging text. More words to copy with care and precision. But that's tomorrow. Tonight, there's just this quiet moment. This peaceful end to a day well spent. The bell rings for Compline. Brother Thomas rises and makes his way back to the church one final time. The last prayer of the day. The offering of the day's work and the day's failings into God's hands. The church is dark now, lit only by a few candles. The monks' voices rise in the darkness, chanting the final psalms. In manus tuas, Domine, commendo spiritum meum. Into your hands, Lord, I commend my spirit. Brother Thomas prays the words with his brothers. And when the prayer ends, when the blessing is given, they file out in silence. The great silence has begun. No speaking now until after tomorrow morning's prayers. Brother Thomas returns to his cell. He removes his robe and lies down on his narrow bed. The straw mattress rustles beneath him. The wool blanket is scratchy but warm. He can hear other monks settling into their cells. The small sounds of men preparing for sleep. A cough. The creak of a bed. The rustle of cloth. Brother Thomas closes his eyes. His body relaxes into the mattress. His aching hand uncurls. His tight shoulders soften. He thinks of nothing in particular, just feels the quietness, the peace of evening, the satisfaction of a day spent doing what he was meant to do. Tomorrow he'll rise before dawn and do it all again. Copy more lines, write more letters, preserve more words, day after day, week after week, year after year. This is his life. This is his calling. This is his prayer, written not in words, but in careful letters on prepared parchment. And with that thought, Brother Thomas drifts into sleep. Days pass much like the one we've just witnessed. Brother Thomas rises with the morning bell, prays, eats, works, prays, eats, works, prays, sleeps. Each day measured in lines copied, in pages completed, in the slow, steady progress through the Gospel of Luke. Some days are easier than others. On clear winter days, when the sun breaks through the clouds, the light in the Scriptorium is perfect, sharp and clean. Brother Thomas can work for longer periods without straining his eyes. His hand moves confidently. The letters flow smoothly from his quill. Other days are harder. When the clouds hang low and thick, when rain drums against the windows, when the light is so dim that he has to squint to see the exemplar clearly. On those days, progress is slower, more careful, more deliberate, and some days his body simply won't cooperate. His hand cramps too severely. His back aches too much. His eyes blur and refuse to focus. on those days, he's grateful for the other tasks that fill a scribe's day. Preparing parchment, mixing ink, ruling pages, mending damaged manuscripts. The work of a scriptorium is never just about copying. It's about maintenance, preservation, organization. The monastery's library must be cared for. Books must be repaired when they become damaged. Loose pages must be rebound. Torn parchment must be mended. Brother Thomas sometimes spends days doing nothing but repair work, taking apart an old manuscript that's falling to pieces, carefully removing the pages from their binding, washing each page gently if it's stained or dirty, scraping away mold if any has grown, patching tears with new parchment, then rebinding everything once it's clean and repaired. It's painstaking work. Some pages are so fragile, they threaten to crumble at the slightest touch. But the text must be preserved. A manuscript might be 300 years old, 400. The only copy in existence of a particular text. Letting it fall apart isn't an option. Brother Thomas handles these ancient manuscripts with reverence, knowing that some scribe, long dead, sat at a desk much like his and copied these very words. That scribe's hand touched this parchment, formed these letters. This isn't just a book, it's a connection across time. Weeks turn into months. Brother Thomas progresses through Luke's Gospel. Chapter 15 becomes chapter 16. The prodigal son gives way to the unjust steward. Then the rich man and Lazarus. Then teachings on faith and forgiveness. Each parable, each saying, each word copied with the same care as the first. No shortcuts, no rushing, just steady, faithful work. Sometimes Brother Thomas wonders how long this particular manuscript will last. The Gospel of Luke he's copying. Who will read it? Where will it end up? Will it stay in this monastery's library? Will it be sent to another monastery as a gift? Will it be sold or traded? He doesn't know. Probably won't ever know. That's not his concern. His concern is simply to copy the text faithfully. What happens to it after is in God's hands. Winter deepens. December arrives with the frost and snow. The scriptorium becomes brutally cold. Even with the small brazier lit, the monks' fingers go numb. They have to pause frequently to warm their hands over the coals. Writing with numb fingers is impossible. Brother Thomas wraps his hands in wool cloth between periods of copying. Flexes his fingers near the warmth. The ink sometimes thickens in the cold, becoming sluggish. He has to thin it carefully with a bit of water. Not too much, just enough to keep it flowing properly. The shortened days mean less working time. The sun rises late and sets early. The hours of good natural light are precious. Every one must be used wisely. December also brings the liturgical season of Advent. The prayers change. The readings change. The whole monastery has a different feeling. Anticipation. Waiting. Preparation for the celebration of Christ's birth. Brother Thomas finds himself copying text related to the season. a passage from Isaiah, a psalm of expectation. The work connects to the prayers. The prayers connect to the work. Everything woven together into a single fabric of devotion. Christmas arrives. On feast days like this, there's no work in the scriptorium. The entire day is given to prayer and celebration. There's better food, singing, a sense of joy that permeates the monastery. Brother Thomas attends every service. His voice joins with his brothers in the ancient hymns. They sing about angels and shepherds and a baby born in Bethlehem. Stories he's copied, words he's preserved. The day after Christmas, it's back to work, back to the desk, back to the quill and ink and parchment. The Gospel of Luke continues. Chapter 17 now. Teachings on duty and gratitude. The healing of 10 lepers, with only one returning to give thanks. Brother Thomas copies the words carefully. Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? 9 who were healed and walked away, 1 who returned. Brother Thomas thinks about gratitude as he works, about the gift of this life, this work, this calling. He tries to be the one who returns, the one who remembers to give thanks. January brings the coldest weather of the year. The monastery is buried in snow. The windows of the scriptorium frost over on the inside. The monks work in their heaviest robes, with blankets wrapped around their shoulders. Progress slows. Some days it's simply too cold to work. The ink freezes in the inkhorn. The parchment becomes brittle. Fingers refuse to grip the quill with any precision. On those days, Brother Thomas does other work. He spends time in the warming room, the one room in the monastery where a fire is kept burning. He mends his spare robe. He helps in the kitchen. He organizes the library, but he misses the copying. On days when he can't work at his desk, he feels incomplete, restless. The rhythm of his life is disrupted. When the weather breaks, even briefly, he returns to the scriptorium with relief, settles into his chair, takes up his quill, and continues where he left off. The Gospel of Luke moves forward. Chapter 18. The persistent widow, the Pharisee and the tax collector, Christ blessing the children, the rich young ruler who walks away sad because he has great wealth. Each story familiar, each story profound. Brother Thomas copies them all with equal care. The exciting stories and the quiet ones, the miracles and the teachings. Every word matters. Every word deserves the same attention. February comes. The days begin to lengthen, slowly, almost imperceptibly. But the light in the scriptorium lasts a bit longer each day. 5 more minutes, 10, 15. It adds up. Brother Thomas is in chapter 19 now. Zacchaeus the tax collector climbing a tree to see Jesus. The parable of the Minas. Jesus' entry into Jerusalem on a donkey, while the crowds wave palm branches and shout, Hosanna. The story is building toward its climax. The betrayal, the trial, the crucifixion. Brother Thomas knows what's coming, has copied it before in other Gospels. But it never gets easier, never becomes routine. To copy the passion narrative is to relive it, to write each word of suffering, each detail of pain. It requires a different kind of focus, a more prayerful attention. But that's still ahead. For now, there's just the steady work, the daily rhythm, the quiet accumulation of words on parchment. Months have passed. Winter has given way to spring. The monastery garden is green again. Flowers bloom in the cloister. Birds sing in the trees outside the scriptorium windows. And Brother Thomas has reached the end of the Gospel of Luke. Chapter 24. The resurrection. The empty tomb. The appearance to the disciples. The walk to Emmaus. Christ's ascension. He copies the final words carefully, reverently. Et ipsi reversisunt in Jerusalem cum gaudio magno, et eran semper in templo laudantes et benedicentes Deum. And they returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and they were continually in the temple, praising and blessing God. The final word, Deum, God. Brother Thomas sets down his quill. The gospel is complete. Every chapter, every verse, every word transferred from the old manuscript to the new. He sits back and looks at the finished work. The pages stacked neatly on his desk. Months of labor. Hundreds of hours. Thousands of letters carefully formed. It's done. He feels. He's not sure what he feels. Relief, certainly. Satisfaction. Accomplishment. But also a strange sense of emptiness. This work that has occupied his days for so long is finished. Tomorrow he'll start something new. A different text. A different rhythm. But tonight, this moment, he simply sits with the completion, with the finished Gospel of Luke that represents a significant portion of his life. Brother William comes to look at the work. He'll be adding illuminations to certain pages, decorated initials, perhaps a full-page illustration of the resurrection. His artistry will transform this text from merely readable to truly beautiful. Good work, Brother Thomas, Brother William says quietly. It's one of the few times speaking is permitted in the Scriptorium. For completed work, for acknowledgement of significant achievement. Deo gratias, Brother Thomas replies. Thanks be to God, because it is, all of it. The skill in his hand, the patience to complete the work, the preserved text, all of it is gift. All of it is grace. The manuscript will be reviewed now. Check carefully for errors. Any mistakes will be corrected. Then it will go to Brother William for illumination. Then to the binder, who will sew the pages together and create a leather cover. Then it will take its place in the monastery library, or be sent wherever it's been commissioned to go. And Brother Thomas will begin again. Another text, another manuscript, another gospel, perhaps, or a book of Psalms, or a theological treatise. The specific text doesn't matter. What matters is the work itself, the preservation, the faithful copying. This is his life. This is his prayer, written not in words spoken aloud, but in words carefully formed on parchment. A prayer that will outlast him, that will be prayed by others long after he's gone. He thinks about the scribe who copied the exemplar he's been working from. That scribe died long ago, perhaps 50 years ago, perhaps 100. But his work continues, lives on. And now, Brother Thomas's work will continue too, will live on, will be copied by other scribes in other scriptoriums in other times. It's a kind of immortality, not of the person, but of the work, the text preserved, the truth transmitted, the word made permanent in ink and parchment. Brother Thomas stands slowly. His back protests, as always. He covers the finished manuscript with a clean cloth, cleans his tools, puts everything in order. Tomorrow there will be a new project, a new beginning. But tonight there's completion. There's the quiet satisfaction of work finished, of duty fulfilled. The bell rings for vespers. Brother Thomas makes his way to the church. The evening light streams through the high windows, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. He takes his place in the choir and joins his voice with his brothers. Laudate Dominum omnes gentes. Praise the Lord, all nations. His voice is neither particularly good nor particularly bad. Just one voice among many, part of the choir, part of the community, part of the great work of prayer and preservation that has continued for centuries and will continue for centuries more. The Gospel of Luke is complete, but the work continues, always continues. There are always more texts to copy, more words to preserve, more truths to transmit. This is the life of a scribe, patient, persistent, purposeful. And as Brother Thomas prays with his brothers in the golden evening light, he feels profound gratitude for his life, for his work, for his calling, for the privilege of being a keeper of words, a preserver of truth, a link in the great chain of transmission that connects the past to the future. Deo gratias. Thanks be to God. The manuscript Brother Thomas copied that winter and spring still exists. Perhaps not literally, we're imagining his story after all. But manuscripts like it still exist. In libraries and museums around the world, physical evidence of the work of medieval scribes. When you see one, you're looking at thousands of hours of labor, months or years of someone's life. Someone who sat at a desk much like Brother Thomas's desk, who held a quill, who dipped it in ink, who formed each letter carefully, patiently, lovingly. Someone whose name you'll probably never know, because most scribes didn't sign their work, weren't interested in fame or recognition, were simply doing what they believed they were called to do, preserving, transmitting, keeping the light of knowledge burning through dark centuries. We owe them an enormous debt, these patient scribes, these careful copyists. Without them, much of ancient and medieval literature would have been lost. the works of philosophers and theologians, the texts of Scripture, the accumulated wisdom of generations, all of it preserved by people like Brother Thomas, people who chose a life of quiet dedication, of meticulous attention to detail, of service to something larger than themselves. The next time you read a book, any book, think about the chain of transmission that brought those words to you. The authors, yes, but also the scribes, the printers, the publishers, the librarians, the teachers who taught you to read. All of them links in the chain. All of them preservers and transmitters of knowledge. And perhaps, in your own way, you can be part of that chain too, whatever your work, whatever your calling. There's honor in doing it carefully, patiently, with attention to detail and dedication to excellence. The world needs people who care about quality, who refuse to cut corners, who do their work as if it matters. Because it does matter. All work matters. All honest labor has dignity. Brother Thomas knew this, lived this, even when his hand ached, even when his back hurt, even when he was tired. He kept working, kept copying, kept preserving, letter by letter, word by word, line by line, day by day. This is his legacy, and the legacy of thousands of scribes like him, the quiet heroes who preserved our past and made our present possible. Rest now. Let their patient work soothe you into sleep. Let the rhythm of their labor become the rhythm of your breathing. In, out, like the dip of a quill, the scratch of pen on parchment. The steady, faithful work of preservation. Sleep well.